All right, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to the Thursday Digital Shop Talk webinar. This is Tom Dorsey. I'll be hosting today, and we're going to be doing a follow-up to yesterday's Digital Shop Talk Radio. We had a great discussion with Eric Twiggs and Frank Scandura yesterday about how to implement process change and change habits in our operation. So we'll be talking about some ways to take that out and put some action behind it. Before we get started, looks like some folks are still getting settled. If you can, raise your hand if you can hear my audio coming across loud and clear. And, you know, if you're new into the webinar, there's a taskbar or a toolbar floating around there. Oh, perfect. Thanks, David. And on there, you can raise your hand. You can hit the Q&A button and type a question out, and I'll cover that stuff live as we're going through the webinar today. And there's also a chat button that you can use. I'm kind of a one-man show today, so I'm going to be bouncing back and forth as I see questions come in. So I'll be minimizing my screen and going in and out, but we'll make it work, and let's get started. Thank you very much for attendance. Yeah, you know, like I said, yesterday's show pretty solid when it comes to some really, you know, I thought easy to understand, short, brilliant examples, like when Eric was talking about, you know, just starting a question or a conversation with how instead of why. Simple things like that. We'll talk about how we take that through a process that we can implement consistently, whether we're trying to change bad habits of guys that have been in the shop for a long time, or we want to instill good behaviors and good adherence to our process for new hires. And so what we're going to be covering today is how do we share that vision, right? It was a big topic. As a matter of fact, a couple weeks back, we had Russ Crosby on, and I thought that Russ had really great insights. So if you haven't seen that episode, you can catch it on the, you know, the podcast webpage there where all the episodes are loaded up. But when he came to really talking about how he starts out at, you know, here's the big vision, and we'll be discussing how you can establish your mission statement or your vision statement, if you will, and make sure that it not only talks about your big dreams, but also the why behind it, right? Set clear expectations. We'll talk about how to set clear expectations and how to run really effective shop team meetings where we know that we're getting the buy-in and we're getting the understanding of the big vision and the why. And so we'll cover how do we know that they're getting it, right? We're going to talk about how to track those behavioral metrics so we can see without being too disruptive that, oh yeah, you know what, this behavior is changing, this process is being adopted, and be able to do that quickly and easily through our business control panel and setting ourselves smart goals. And then we'll follow up with talking about how do we reinforce those goals through participation, through incentivizing, and also through you know, regular team meetings. All right, so, you know, first thing we got to do is make sure that we've shared that vision. You know, a lot of times we're busy and we come into, you know, and we bring in new people into the business, and are we making sure that we sit down and not just once, maybe it's not just in their new hire employee package, but we talk about where we're going to be at the end of the year, at the end of 5 years, at the end of 10 years, as a team, right? Building that dream together and that vision together so that we can be transparent about that, and then people understand that they have a critical role. They're integral to achieving that dream. And once people feel, you know, and it was great insight that Eric had yesterday when he was talking about, you know, transparency and making it clear, and the different effect on how it affects team behavior. And because that's it, is if I know what you need me to do and I know why I need to do it, well, then I'm going to get out there and do it. And, you know, and I love how Frank's biggest response normally was going to be, hey, you know, this is how we do it in this shop, and if you don't do it this way, there's the door. But and I understand that, and that's great if you live in that, place where you've got a big labor pool of highly qualified people. But at the same time, we have to develop talent. We have to take somebody and introduce them into our culture, and then get them, and then see what they can, how they're going to fit, and then take it to the next level to see how what we can kind of get out of them. How high can they achieve operating inside of that culture? And so it's critical to be including our long-term, our short-term, our mid-term, and our long-term dream, and be transparent and reinforce that with our team. Be very clear on how their individual roles in your operation fit into that dream. This is why we're doing it this way. This is so if we're talking about implementation of the digital inspection program, yeah, it's a big change for some guys, right, that have been there. But here's why we're going to do it. And here's what it's going to achieve for us. And here's what we're going to do with that achievement. And here's why I need you to do these things. And here's how you can help the team and help yourself to be successful. And so that's where we would need to get in here and make sure that we're tying those individual goals into that big picture, right, into that vision. And when we do that, and it's really simple to do that through the business control panel, because you can go in and set your goal levels. You can go in there and document right inside of the business control panel. And we'll cover that when we get into the BCP portion. But if I go in there and I say, here's the minutes for my team meeting, and here's the agreements that we made for this, week. If we're having it on a Monday morning or on a Friday afternoon, here's what we're going to do next week, and here's the individual goals. And then they're transparent. Everybody understands where they need to go, and then we just track those metrics through our business control panel and make sure that we're on track to hit them. Make it visible, right? Put a big, I think Russ was talking about how he had a sign, a whiteboard that he wrote his kind of reminder, maybe his mission statement or his catchphrase, if you would, right above where the parts shelf was. And so every day when those guys are going up there to grab their parts, they're seeing their mission statement, their vision statement. It's reinforcing it continuously throughout the day. Make it a topic of conversation. Hey, have a motto, build a song. Who knows? Any type of an activity that gets that vision reinforced and integral to your culture is going to work for you. And so here at Auto Vitals, we have a big, somebody went out and got the big vinyl sticker. It's probably about 12 feet long, across the wall. So any of you that have been in here for a workshop or something have probably seen it. And it's a great quote that kind of really connects our culture to what we do here. And so we love to display that so that it's the first thing that you see when you walk in the door every morning. And it reminds you that, we're here to be disruptive and change, an industry for the better and help all of these shop owners. And it really gets you kind of pumped up every morning. And when you discuss that, matter of fact, we've got it positioned right in our huddle area. So where we have our company meetings, that's the kind of the big statement that's on the side wall right there. And it's really effective. So something like that you can build into your shop. Put up a big, nice sign, something to tie in. It's great for the customers. Customers see that, your values and how you operate your shop, and that you got a plan. And that's fantastic. And then, of course, reward success, right? We always want to get to the point where we're sharing the great stories and we're going to talk about effective team meetings, but really get the crew involved. Have them tell the story to the rest of the team, right, about how they were able to do something or diagnose something or go out of their way to provide some really exceptional customer service experience, and brag about it, reward them, right? Maybe it's pizza for the crew. There's nothing better. I learned this in the military a long time ago, right? Because it works both ways. It's great when you achieve something and then the whole team benefits because then they all like you. especially if you get that a lot, right? So yeah, man, pizza every week because this guy's crushing it, and you become fast friends. The other way too is when you don't make your goal and then everybody else suffers, kind of thing. I'll leave that up to your individual cultures that you have inside your shop. I vote for the latter. Let's make it positive. And so another follow-up to talking about setting those SMART goals. So how do we know, how do we set expectations? Well, once we've established our vision statement, we've got to get in there and we've got to set those clear expectations. And those should be done on an individual level. Everybody in your operation is at a different level. And we want to kind of personalize. We talk a lot about that in how we present the digital inspection program, personalized to the motorist, and how important it is that we are able to point that out in the selfie age, right? And this is kind of no different. It's a personalized individual goal plan and potentially career path. And that career path is really the mechanism that says, here's how you fit in that big dream, that big vision statement that we've got up on the wall there. This is your portion of it, and you need to own it. And we do that through setting SMART goals, right? And I don't want to beat it to death. I know we talked about it a little bit last week, and we've been on setting goals. But if you can measure it, you can fix it. And if you can measure it, you can succeed. And so we want to make sure we set very specific goals. What exactly does that person need to do? And that's where it goes back to, what Eric and Frank were talking about with us yesterday about being very clear and transparent in setting those expectations. So we make very specific goals. And goals always need to be something that I can hold, right? Some result, some deliverable. And so it needs to be tangible, and it needs to be, because of that, it can be measured. And we want to do that through our business control panel, setting those goals. You can, if you've got monitors out in the bays, it's a great way to go ahead and broadcast that business control panel up there. You can just put the Insights tab on there, and then you can display graphs or whatever you want to do. If you want to do it through a whiteboard or a leaderboard of some sort, that's awesome too. I've seen I've seen a shop, they had like an old scoreboard, was pretty cool, a digital scoreboard. I've seen menu boards, and even just a whiteboard, that's nice that you update, kind of one where you fill in the thermometer or something as they're achieving towards a team goal is great, because it's a visual reinforcement to make sure that they stay top of mind in staying focused on making that goal happen. Your goals need to be attainable, of course, right? Is that you can't, build a bridge to the moon overnight. So you got to start, kind of one brick at a time at the foundational level. Have to be relevant, have to be personalized to me, and clear towards the vision, and then in that time frame. And so pretty simple, as far as the time frame goes, if you set up your vision statement in short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals, and then you can go ahead and build those individual timelines accordingly. And of course, always when it's behavioral or process change, we want to make those timelines quick. We want to put it in, say, like a weekly time frame. So, and then baby steps. So by the end of this week, we're taking 4 pictures. And by the end of next week, we're taking, 6 pictures on average. And by the end of the following week, we're up to 10 pictures on average. So we increment the goal and as we do that, we start to develop the muscle memory and the habits that lead to the process change that we're trying to implement, in the habit breaking or changing of the habit that we're trying to address. And then of course reward that. So yeah, you might want them at 20 pictures, on average. And yeah, your first week's goal was 4, and they did 5. Celebrate it, right? Still celebrate that. Congratulations, because that was his weekly goal, or his or her, right? Weekly goal. Next week, we're going to ramp it up. And then when we're at that big 20 number where we want them to be, make a big celebration, nice gift card, lunch for the team, something like that. And it'll really help to reinforce those good habits. And it's funny because, a lot of times, I get this a lot. We talked about it in the radio show yesterday, is just how do you know that they get it, right? And Eric had some great insights, I thought, on how to elicit the response and get the engagement out of your crew when you're in your team meetings. And because if they're looking like this, it's probably ain't working, right? But seriously, they need to be engaging. And the best way to do that is that each team member should have a part to play. And so one of the cool things you can do about when you set those SMART goals, and if I'm the guy who had the 4 pictures per inspection average and I did 5 for my week, and I'm going to get up there and I'm going to talk about how I did it. And I'm going to report my numbers to the team, and I'm going to say how I did it. I'm going to say what my goal is for next week, and then I'm going to say how I'm going to get there. And when I do that, again, it's another reinforcement for myself, but then I just told my team I'm going to do it. And now they're counting on me to do it, and they expect me to do it. And now I'm accountable to the team. So it goes back to kind of that military reconditioning, right, is where you don't want to let the team down, right? It's interesting, we're in the D-Day time, and I'm listening to a lot of these guys talking about, what they remember from those times, these patriots, and they said, you know what, they were always fighting for the guy on their right or their left, right? And it's the same kind of way inside of that team environment. When we want to instill a process change into these guys, if the team is buying in, and you get that a lot, right? And Eric was talking about that yesterday in the show, is when you get the guy who thinks, oh, it's all just going to go away. I don't really need to pay attention because I've been here a long time and stuff always changes and it comes and goes, these good ideas, but they never last. And so I'm not going to get all excited about it right now. Well, if that's your ATEC, that's the guy that's been there for the longest time, that's the leader, the guy that everybody looks up to, guess what? Everybody else on the team is going to go, okay. They're going to be like this picture right here, laying on it. Oh, sure, we got it. They're not going to ask any questions in the meeting. There's going to be no definition. There's not going to be any in-depth conversation. Nobody's going to challenge you and go, what, are you out of your mind? Why would we do that? Right? At least that, then somebody's at least paying attention to what you're saying, right? And so if you have that type of culture or that potential, you need to address that first. And if you can get that buy-in from the team leaders and just as the cultural foundation, then when you implement these things and I say it out loud in front of my team members, guess what? Now I have to deliver. There's no way. And a lot of times, because I get this question all the time, I say, well, do you incentivize your guys to do these inspections or whatever it might be, right? And oh yeah, but hey, don't they get a higher ARO and don't they get more work and aren't they making more money on their checks? Oh yeah, well, but they don't really care about that, or maybe it's not quick enough or big enough. If you're, putting $10 a week on your ARO over time, maybe you put $100 on it over a year or something. Well, my check got incrementally bigger, but it was nothing to really shock me and snap me into, wow, digital inspections is, the lifeblood of my paycheck or something like that, right? So they don't buy in. And so this is the perfect way to be able to do that, is to get them up there and talk about the successes that they have, because then it reinforces and makes it real. And then you've got that leader of the team out there saying, yeah, this is the way to do it. And then everybody kind of falls in line and then, picks up their performance and strives to hit their goals. And you should be hearing a lot more engagement inside of that meeting as they're asking questions and maybe even ribbing each other and being competitive with each other about their metrics. Then you've got kind of the great positive culture that's going to go out there and do big things for you. And whenever possible, ask them to demonstrate. Show me how to take that picture. Show me how to use this tool. Show me how to do this thing that we've just asked of you. And then they get up and that they show that they have a comprehension of the new process or behavior. They demonstrate that in front of guys. And again, it becomes very engaging, right? Maybe you can have a round robin event. You're probably doing a lot of that right now in your shop as part of your training curriculum. But you can do that for best practices as well. You know, show me how you mark up some images, or show me how you get really good lighting on this component that's, you know, usually hard to take a good picture of because it's tucked up under a wheel well or something, whatever. So those types of ideas, especially when you get somebody who you can praise about how well they're doing at something, and then say, hey, show the team how to do it. You know, oh yeah, there's a lot of pride attached to that. And we look at them as somebody who is, you know, a leader on the team. Perfect. So we've got about 10 minutes. Any questions that you guys have? Anything you want to add as far as how you've taken, you know, some of these best practices that we've talked about, as far as sharing your vision with your team, keeping it top of mind, being very clear in your expectations with your team members? If you've got anything like that you'd like to share, you could chat that in, and we can discuss that live, or you can also go into the Facebook forum and get into that conversation on there and just talk about best practices, because really we were looking to help each other out. Some people might be struggling to implement and they just can't get their techs to do it, or I just can't get my service writer to add the arrows. He says he's too busy. Give some help and some ideas on what you went through or how you overcame those challenges, and help other folks out. So Business Control Panel is a great place to start, because this is where you can do the measurable part and you can do the personalization, right? You can make it very relevant to the individual. And we do that through, I'm going to blow this up. Oops, maybe I won't. Well, hopefully you guys can see. Let me see if I can do it like this. No. This? No. Okay, but what I'm looking at here is, you know how you can set on your Insights tab, you select your top line metric. In this case, we're looking at ARO. And then we want to look at some influential behaviors that we might have to start to change, right? Because I can see a 64% inspection sent rate. I mean, depending on the shop, you know, the scenario, it's probably be quite higher than that. And so it's great that they're doing some, but they really need to, we really need to set the bar to where they're doing it all, and across all riders. And so techs look like they're doing, you know, fantastic job on inspection rate, but here's where we drill down. Okay, so once you've selected that behavioral KPI that we want to track, we go ahead and just select that, and then go run through your individual technicians. And it's a great way to do it on your one-on-ones with your techs and your service writers. You just sit down and you load up their metrics and have that discussion. In this case, we're probably going to be talking to the techs about how great they're doing and rewarding them and talking about their success in the team meeting. For the service writers, we need to go through them individually and find out what's going on as far as their sent rate. There's been an incremental improvement, but it should be much greater improvement there. You know, they were working and dipped kind of back to the old habits. So I know they're working at it. We can see that here, but we got to get that up above that goal line bar. And so we're going to do that by drilling down here into the individual service advisors, reviewing their individual inspection sent rates, set an individual goal for them, write it up on the goal board in front of everybody so we know what their goal is for inspection sent rate for the week, and we increment it up to the point we want to be. You can see this was over several weeks here. So we went from 753 to 71 to 91, fantastic. But then, you know, got a little loose again. And so we want to set that goal back up into this 70, 80 range. And then next week we'll get it back up into the 90 range. And then we're going to always set that weekly goal to maintain that 95, you know, 90 to 95% sent inspection level. And it's as easy as that. We sit down, discuss it. It's on the goal board for the shop to see and the team to see. We discuss and have them report what their weekly number was at the team meeting. And in the one-on-ones, we sit down and make sure that we're providing all the tools and information and training that they need to be able to do what we're asking of them, where they are in relation, and what's their plan to get there. And once we kind of work that whole system, right, is getting the vision, being clear where your individual part is in that, setting very clear goals in little bite-sized, attainable sections to get there, and then sitting down and reinforcing the why and the need and the how, and making and having that individual own that goal, right, by presenting it to the company, owning it, talking about it, updating it on the leaderboard or whatever it might be themselves, so that they own that goal. It belongs to them in front of their peers, in front of their team, and you'll see that you're going to have a very good momentum towards being able, and that works, guys, for everything, right? It's not just about implementing digital inspections, that's for sure. It's any process change or any habit that you need to break over time, or that you want to implement, right? It was great. Russ talked about how he started a book club, right, in his shop, and what a, it's a cool idea. And we got in, we heard a guy out at the ATI Super Conference. He talked about how it takes 20 days to establish a habit, and it takes 60 days. I can't remember. It's like 64 days or something, whatever it was, to make that habit stick. And so, and it doesn't matter how long you do, you just have to do it. So his deal was, get out of bed immediately, sit down in put a chair with a book on it next to your bed, sit down and read for 15 minutes for 20 X amount of days. Guess what? Then after that, that habit was developed. So, so Russ took it to the next level, right? And he implemented it into his shop. Great idea, because it helps be creative and with the team and educate them. It helps them to open up to be engaging, because they then have a discussion about the books and their takeaways during their team meeting. So that opens them up to public speaking and more team bonding. And that's what we're talking about here, is getting them engaged in the meeting and in the vision and the goal accomplishment as they own that part of it, and big things happen. So, oh, and then this was the book we were talking about, right? Atomic Habits by James Clear. Fantastic book. It's really interesting. The guy, I think he's like an engineer. The way he breaks down the sections is really a great book. It'll give you a lot of great insights on how to break those bad habits and implement new ones. So get a copy of that. Look, I'm not putting an Amazon link. I don't, borrow one from the library, whatever you got to do. But get that book and read it, because it's great. It's going to help you a lot. Take up any questions. We'd love to continue this conversation, and again, talk about how it's working in your shop, and some help each other out. Take it up on Facebook if you could. If you're not in our Facebook forum, you just search the Digital Shop Talk on Facebook, and it's closed group, but you fill out a little bit of who you are, and we'll let you in. And it's great. Get up there and cut it up with all the shop owners on there. Tune in next week for Digital Shop Talk Radio. It's going to be Wednesdays, every Wednesday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. We'll be talking with a couple more good shops about problems for you to solve. So thanks for your time. I hope you got some good takeaways from today, and we can get out there and implement some vision statements and best practices into our team meetings to get those process changes and some of those behaviors changed, and get higher adoption into our digital shop process. Thanks again, everybody, for your time. See you next week.